Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lenny McGill, and welcome to the 1989 USPSA National Championships held at the Paso Range right here in Barry, Illinois. This week, some of the top IPSC pistol shooters in the world have come together to find out who's going to be the 1989 champion. This year's championship consists of 10 stages which have targets from 3 to 50 yards, many of which will appear and disappear. Of the 10 stages, 2 are standard exercises, 4 are speed shoots, and 4 are field or assault courses. The 450 shooters who have assembled for this year's match will be put to the ultimate test of their shooting skills and abilities over the next 5 days. As in the previous years, we will be following the Super Squad, consisting of the top practical shooters in the world, including reigning world and national men's champion Rob Leatham, reigning world and national women's champion Debbie James, 1989 world speed shooting champion Angelo Spagnoli, former national champion Jerry Barnhart, the only man who, many people say, can beat Rob Leatham, and the 1989 Masters champion Brian Enos. Along with the Super Squad, we will also be showing many different level shooters from C-Class up to Master Class. So stay with us as we follow some of the best IPSC pistol shooters in the world to find out who's going to be the 1989 USPSA National Champion.
Unload and show clear.
In the first phase of the Baylor Precision doorway drills, the shooter starts facing the targets through the open door, with his hands naturally at his sides. At the start signal, he will draw and engage 5 targets in any order. In between the third and fourth target, there is a no-shoot target. If the shooter hits the no-shoot, he will be assessed a 10-point penalty. The time will stop on the last shot. In the second phase, the shooter will start facing the closed door with his hands at his sides. At the start command, the shooter will open the door and engage the 5 targets in any order through the doorway. The targets are partially concealed by hard cover. Hits through the hard cover will not be counted. This gives the competitors very little target to shoot at. Our first shooter is the newly crowned world speed shooting champion, Angelo Spagnoli, from San Francisco, California.
If you finish, reload. Are you ready? Stand by.
Angelo Spagnoli shows that he is just as adept at IPSC shooting as he is at shooting steel plates. He finishes with a hit factor of 6.95. The scoring in IPSC takes accuracy, power, and speed into account equally to come up with what is called a hit factor. The accuracy portion is tallied by the areas hit on the target. The IPSC targets consist of 4 different scoring areas: A, B, C, and a D zone. The value of these scoring areas depends on the power factor of your ammo. The power factor is determined by taking the velocity of your round multiplied by the weight of the bullet and divided by 1,000. The power factor for major is 175. 174.99999 is considered minor and receives lower values on the B, C, and D zone hits. There is an overall minimum of 125 power factor. An A zone hit scores 5 points for both major and minor. B and C hits score 4 points for major and 3 points for minor. D hits count 2 points for major and 1 point for minor. Now the speed portion comes into play. Your overall target score is then divided by your time to determine your hit factor. Angelo's score of 47 points is divided by his time of 6.76 seconds to come up with his hit factor of 6.95. Our next shooter is Roberta Eckert from Weirton, West Virginia. Roberta is a member of the USPSA Women's Silver Team.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Roberta shows why she's ranked as one of the top women shooters in the world. Her time, 4.26 seconds, gives her a total of 7.04 seconds and a hit factor of 6.3. Nice shooting, Roberta. Now our next shooter has just won his first major tournament in 5 years. It's the 1989 Masters champion, Brian Enos.
Stand by. If you're finished, reload. Are you ready? Stand by.
As you can see, Brian had to pick up a shot there, which increases his time dramatically to 4.98 seconds, for a total of 7.55 seconds and a hit factor of 5.96. Up next at the Baylor Precision Doorway Drills event is Jerry Barnhart, one of the premier IPSC pistol shooters in the world. Jerry?
If you're finished, reload. Are you ready? Stand by.
Barnhart blazes his first time of 2.16, added to 3.37 seconds, totals 5.53 seconds, and a hit factor of 7.52. Now here's Doug Koenig from Pipersville, Pennsylvania.
Stand by. If you're finished, are you ready? Stand by.
Doug finishes with a blazing time, 2.83 seconds, but a disappointing hit factor, only 6.90. You can see a lot of the Super Squad are wearing the new uniforms supplied by Safariland and Springfield Armory. Most of you probably know this next shooter. It's Rob Leatham.
If you're finished, reload. Are you ready? Stand by.
Rob Latham's time was not as fast as Jerry Barnhart's or Doug Koenig's, but his accuracy shines through with a hit factor of 7.64. That puts him in third place. In first, Brian Wardell. Second place, Ken Tapp. Fourth place, Jerry Barnhart. And in fifth, Vance Schmidt. The next stage, Speed Kills, sponsored by Chip McCormick's Performance Supply, is also divided into two phases. In the first phase, the shooter will start with his hands on specified marks on top of the port in the barricade. At the start command, the shooter will engage the 6 targets through the port. In the second string, the shooter will start standing behind the Bianchi Cup-style barricade with his hands on the specified marks. At the start command, the shooter will engage the 6 targets from either side of the barricade. The targets are separated by no-shoot targets. Our first shooter is the new Women's World Speed Shooting Champion, Shirley Hamilton from San Diego, California. Shirley was the women's champion at this year's Steel Challenge.
If you're finished, reload and are you ready? Stand by.
Shirley Hamilton finishes with 4.88 seconds, which gives her a total time of 9.13 seconds and a hit factor of 5.48. Now, here's Jerry Barnhart on Chip McCormick's Speed Kills. Wow, that's a blazing run which deserves another look in slow motion, 2.24 seconds. Notice how he controls the muzzle of that .38 Super.
Stand by.
Pay close attention to how the top shooters pan those targets to make sure they haven't missed a shot. Jerry's time of 5.70 gives him a hit factor of 7.54. Now here's Robbie Latham on Speed Kills.
Stand by.
On an event like this, you don't want to miss and you don't want to hit a hostage. Rob had to pick up an extra shot down there because he thought he hit that hostage target, but he missed it, just nicked it outside of the perforation. That gives him a hit factor of 7.86. Now here's Brian Enos at Speed Kills.
Shooter's finished. Stand by.
Brian Enos finishes with 4.89 seconds, which gives him a hit factor the same as Rob Leatham, 7.86. Our next shooter is from Roland, Arkansas. It's the world-famous gunsmith, J. Michael Plaxco.
Stand by. Shooter's finished. You may reload and hold. Stand by.
Plaxco finishes with a time of 4.45 seconds for a total of 7.03 seconds and a hit factor of 7.54. Next up is Doug Koenig, who just won the speed shoot-off at the 1989 Steel Challenge.
Finished. You may reload. Shooter ready. Stand by.
Doug Koenig shows he's got what it takes to be a champion. His time, 3.94 seconds for a total of 6.58 seconds and a hit factor of 8.51. Now that puts him into second place at Speed Kills. First goes to Dave Kelleher. Third, Angelo Spagnoli. Fourth is Ken Tapp. And fifth, Mike Martelin. Our next stage is the first of two standard exercises in this match. It's called the Quickie Standards, sponsored by Smith and Alexander. In this stage, the shooter starts with both hands touching their ears or ear muffs. At the start command, the shooter will engage the 3 targets with 2 rounds each, freestyle. Then, after the mandatory reload, the shooter will engage the 3 targets again with the strong hand only. This stage will be repeated using the weak hand instead of the strong hand for a total of 24 rounds. The scoring of this match is Virginia count, which means only the predetermined number of rounds can be fired. Shooters are not allowed to pick up any missed shots. Now our first shooter is Mark Mazzata. Mark led this tournament last year for several days before finishing up in 4th place overall.
Make ready. Stand by.
Mark Mazzata fumbles that reload, which gives him a time of 7.11 seconds for a total of 12.88 seconds and a hit factor of 7.30. Now here's J. Michael Plaxco, who can really blaze on this kind of event.
Load and make ready. Stand by.
I know J. Michael Plaxco, and I've been to his class out in Roland, Arkansas, and I can tell you, he'll show you how to shoot this event because that's what he practices. It shows in a hit factor of 9.40. Watch his left arm as he fully extends in this weak-handed side of the stage. Excellent shooting, J. Michael Plaxco. Now, here is without a doubt the best women pistol shooter to ever live, Debbie James, the current Women's World IPSC champion.
Stand by. Stand by.
Debbie had a little trouble with her reload on the strong hand stage, but still manages to finish with a 6.77 hit factor. Here it is in slow motion. The reload, and just misses the magazine well, and up.
I think my reload just got a little hung up in the gun when I was switching into the right hand, strong hand there, so.
But it seems like your weak hand was pretty bad.
Yeah, I was pleased with that one, sure, yeah. I wished my right hand would have not, my mag wouldn't have hung up. Yeah, we're only talking a couple seconds there. and I learned a lesson. You only shoot as fast as you can shoot A's. So you either have A's or you have misses. I think I was maybe down about 5 points, maybe. I don't know. I didn't look. Let me be more accurate for the movies. It's down 6. 6 points.
Now back to quickie standards with our next shooter, Tom Campbell, the resident shooter at Smith & Wesson.
Stand by. Load and make ready. Stand by.
You got to keep in mind that Tommy's shooting a stock 45 with full house 230 grain factory ball ammo. Now, if you want to see something incredible, here's our next shooter, Jerry Barnhart.
Stand by.
With a run like that, we've got to see it in slow motion. Here it is, 5.89 seconds. Look at that muscle control. Look at those arms fully extended. Now, the magazine change and the transfer to the left hand. It may look a little slow, but this is really slow motion. Nice run, Jer.
Thanks. I'll take that one.
What's your fast time? 4 point what?
4.86.
That's incredible. How do you get that?
Somebody's looking over me today.
Jerry Barnhart's excellent run at quickie standards allows him to take first place. J. Michael Blacksco finishes second, Brian Enos in third, and Frank Garcia from Shooters Depot in fourth. John Dixon from Texas finishes in fifth. Overall, after the first day of competition, we've got a group of great shooters at the top. Jerry Barnhart, Angelo Spagnoli, the world speed shooting champion, Rob Latham, the current world champion, Ken Tapp, a former Masters winner and a guy who's over 50 years old, and Mike Martelin in fifth place. We've got more shooting coming up. Here we are at day 2 of our competition as Vic International sponsors the first stage of this morning, Servicios Averiado 2, which translates into washrooms out of order. In this stage, the shooter starts with 1 foot in each shooting box facing the targets with his wrists above his shoulders. At the start command, the shooter will step to either shooting box so that both feet are in that shooting box and will engage the targets on the opposite side of the barricade. He will then step to the other box and engage the targets on the other side of the barricade. Our first shooter has a familiar last name to our viewers. Here's my wife, Tammy McGill. Nice shooting, Tammy. Her time of 15.11 seconds gives her a hit factor of 3.77. Now our next shooter is the editor of American Handgunner magazine, Cameron Hopkins. If you've read American Handgunner magazine, you know he can write. Now you know he can shoot too. Our next shooter is Diane Lamb from Tucson, Arizona. Excellent shooting, Diane Lamb. She's one of the top women pistol shooters in the Cactus League over there in Arizona. Now, our next shooter is the husband of Debbie James. It's Russ James. Russ is a law enforcement officer, as well as being the top A-class shooter in last year's competition. Russ finishes with a respectable time of 13.43 seconds, which factors out to 4.22. Our next shooter is the Canadian women's champion and a former world IPSC women's champion. It's Carrie Lathwell. Carrie hits one of the no-shoot pepper poppers. Her time, 16.42, will factor low at 3.19. Our next shooter is Doug Boykin. Doug is a master-class shooter from Arizona. That's a good time by Doug Boykin, 9.86 seconds, which factors to an excellent hit factor of 5.58. Our next shooter is the man to watch in the IPSC shooting sports, Doug Koenig. Doug Koenig has a smoking time, even though he had to go back and pick up a shot. 9.21 seconds. Hit factor 6.19. Here it is in slow motion. Look at that extension with both arms. And he picks up the shot. Now the reload. Koenig is a tough competitor. His run puts him in second place here at Servicios Averiado 2. Merrill Eddington takes first. Rick Castello is in third. Angelo Spagnoli, a familiar name, is in fourth. And Aaron Bush, 17-year-old Aaron Bush, is in fifth place. Springfield Armory sponsors the Freestyle Standards, which is our next stage here in day 2. This is a fixed time stage with times ranging from 8 seconds to 3 seconds. There are 3 different shooting lines at 50 yards, 30 yards, and 15 yards. Our first shooter is the one and only Dave Stanford, USPSA President and United States IPSC Regional Director. A lot of people don't know that you are a very accomplished shooter. You're a master class shooter yourself. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you've progressed from shooting, how you got involved to be president.
Well, I was a Seattle police officer for approximately 20 years. I got involved while I was still on the department. I first started as able to learn how to defend myself and others with a firearm. I thought it was very good information to have at the time. It seemed very challenging because there was nothing that was ever the same. And then I got hooked on the sporting aspects of it and have been involved in the sport ever since. The highest I placed was 10th overall at the Nationals, I guess, in 1980. Since administrating the sport, I took over as regional director for the United States for the International Practical Shooting Confederation in November '84. And we incorporated the USPSA in 1985. And since that time, I've been sitting mostly behind a desk trying to keep all the paperwork flowing.
Dave Stanford shows he can do more than just shuffle some papers. He finishes with a respectable score of 132 points here on Freestyle Standards. Now, here's Aaron Bush, 17 years old, just came off a top 5 finish in our last stage.
Reload. Stand by. Reload and holster. Stand by.
A match like this is won and lost in this kind of event. The standard exercises are the most important and, in all reality, the most difficult. Aaron Bush finishes with 122 points. Now, here's the next shooter, John Madigan, the owner and promoter of the Steel Challenge.
Stand by. Stand by.
John Madigan finishes with 127 points. I had a chance to talk to our next shooter about this event.
The Standards is a stage where you either make it or break it. There's no in between. You got to go out there and be settled. You got to take all the time they give you, no less, no more, and just shoot the best you can. Be very consistent from string to string, and in the long run, hopefully it'll pay off.
Now, you have been shooting a lot over the last year. Give me an idea of where you've been and what kind of things you've done.
Well, the latest match that I went to a couple of weeks back, just got back from Paris, France, and they had the 1989 European Championships in Paris this year, and I was a fortunate winner at the 1989 European Championships. It was a very long match, 21 stages of fire, and I went out there and shot consistently straight across the board, and that's what paid off. And I intend to do the same thing here at the 1989 U.S. Nationals.
Frank tells the secret in IPSC shooting: consistency is the key. He finishes with 147 points. But unfortunately, that's not enough to place in the top 5. Doug Boykin is first. J. Michael Plaxco and Mark Mazzata tied for second. Rob Latham and Jerry Barnhart tied for 4th place in the freestyle standard, sponsored by Springfield Armory. So after 2 days of competition, Doug Boykin is in 1st place. Jerry Barnhart 2nd. Rob Latham 3rd. Mark Mazzata moves up to 4th. And Doug Koenig in 5th place overall. It's day 3 in our competition, and picture this. There you are, getting your jack out of the trunk of your car to fix a flat tire, when you're confronted by 6 partially concealed bad guys near the front of your car. That is the scenario of the Traveler's Nightmare stage, sponsored by Oglesby and Oglesby. The shooter starts with his hands on the jack and his loaded gun sitting next to it. At the start signal, the shooter will retrieve his gun and move to either port and engage the designated targets. Since port B is low to the ground, everybody will be starting at port A and moving to the lower port B. I asked J. Michael Plaxco about this course of fire.
You know, these little stages like this, you know, you hit the target, you know, nobody gains on you. You know, if you miss a load or drop a shot or drop a bunch of points, you know, somebody can gain the ground. All thing you can do here is lose. You can't win.
What are you going to do?
Hit the target. Try to.
All right, ready. Stand by.
Plaxco lives up to his prediction. He hits the target. 9.24 seconds, a hit factor of 5.84, an excellent run. Now, here's our next shooter, Angelo Spagnoli. Spagnoli shows he can get down quick. His time, 8.95 seconds, and a hit factor of 6.48. Our next shooter, the women's world champion, Debbie James. Debbie James plays it conservative. Her time of 11.72 factors out to 4.44.
Are you ready?
Now ready to blaze with Jerry Barnhart. Jerry takes a second look to make sure all his shots made it, and they did. 7.66 seconds, hit factor of 5.35. Now here's Robbie Latham. Stage like this, you can't afford to miss, so everybody's playing it conservative. Rob finishes with 8.45 seconds and a hit factor of 5.92. Here's Brian Enos. Brian had to pick up a shot there. His time is still good, though. 9.23 seconds and a hit factor of 5.74. Our next shooter, Mark Mazzata. Nice time, Mark Mazzata. 8.23 seconds, which factors out to 6.49. Next shooter, Doug Koenig.
Stand by.
Doug Koenig finishes with an excellent time, 8.29 seconds, which factors out to 6.51, the best of the day. Here he is in slow motion. So looking at the overall results on Traveler's Nightmare, Doug Koenig is first, Mark Mazzotta second, and Angelo Spagnoli third. Now they had hit factors of 6.51, 6.49, and 6.48 respectively. Doug Avancic fourth, and Greg Meller fifth. Safariland sponsors the next stage, Exit Laughing. In this event, the shooter starts at the table with a glass in his strong hand. His weak hand will be resting on his kneecap. At the start signal, the shooter will engage the first 3 targets from behind the table. He will then move to the window and engage the next 3 targets through that window. The last 3 targets will be engaged from the doorway. Now here's our first shooter. It's Tom Campbell from Team Smith & Wesson. This is a fun stand-up-and-shoot-'em stage that shows what IPSC is all about. Tom Campbell finishes with 9.14 seconds and a hit factor of 941. Here's Scott Carnahan. Scott had to pick up a shot there and finishes with 9.88 seconds, which factors out to 8.5. Next up is Frank Bielert, son of world-famous gunsmith Austin Bielert, and the man in charge at Bielert Precision. Nice run, Frank. That's a time of 10.15 seconds and a hit factor of 8.18. Now, here's Jerry Barnhart on Exit Laughing. Ooh, Jerry had a slight stumble with the trigger finger, but still manages 8.63 seconds and a hit factor of 9.73. Now, here's Big John Dixon from Texas. Ooh, John finishes with a good time, 9.39 seconds, but it looks like he must have had a miss as he factors out at 7.67. Now, here's our current leader, Doug Boykin. Doug Boykin finishes with a conservative 10.52 seconds and a factor of 8.36. Next shooter is me. I've been making tapes for the past 5 years and started shooting competitively this year. Not bad for a guy who just started shooting. Time, 10.85 seconds and a hit factor of 7.19. Now, here she is again, my wife, Tammy McGill. Well, I got through that one safe. Her time, 14.25, factors out to 6.25, so I beat her, thank gosh. Now, here's our next shooter. It's Revolver Vic. He's one of the only shooters here this week shooting a revolver.
I shoot a revolver because I just enjoy it. I'm in the sport to have fun, and I enjoy shooting a revolver and trying to place as high as I can against the autos.
Vic Mahern shows he can handle that revolver. Here's that reload in slow motion. He finishes with a time of 14.94 seconds and a hit factor of 5.49. Next up is the section coordinator for Area 2 of the USPSA. It's Mark Halcomb, an excellent shooter and, as you'll see, one of the few handicapped shooters in the sport today. Nice shooting, Mark Halcomb. His time, 27.02 seconds and a factor of 3.22. Our next shooter is a certified speed demon himself, Angelo Spagnoli. Wow, Spagnoli must have heard me say speed demon. His time, 8.72 seconds. Now watch how he's got the steps blocked out to be one big step between each window. And reload and step. Spagnoli factors out to 10.09. Now our next shooter is Rob Leatham on Safariland's Exit Laughing. Robbie Leatham is a man with a mission. He never stops moving, and a coin of phrase he uses frequently, it's economy of motion. His time of 8.01 seconds is the fastest of the day, and it factors out to 10.86. Now this gives him the lead in Safariland's Exit Laughing stage. Second place goes to Angelo Spagnoli. Todd Jarrett is in third, Jerry Barnhart is in fourth, and Michael Voigt in fifth. Overall, after 3 days of competition, Robbie Leatham is in first, Jerry Barnhart second, Mark Mazzata in third, Dougie Boykin in fourth, and Greg Meller in fifth place. Before we get back to competition, we talked to range owner Dick Metcalf about the PASA facility.
Well, of course, this is the Pike Adams Sportsman's Alliance, and we have about 675 members, and we have 167 registered USPSA members shooting in our Club USPSA program. So we are one of the larger USPSA clubs in the country. And the answer to the question of why there's so much support here for this particular game and for the shooting sports generally is, I think it's a very simple fact. This is a part of the country where people grow up with firearms, using them for recreation, using them for hunting, using them to put food on the table, and they believe in the right to keep and bear arms. It's a part of their life, and they get very, very tired of what they read in national news magazines and see on national TV about firearms, and this is an opportunity for them, even if they aren't IPSC shooters, to come out and vote by supporting the sport in large numbers.
What does the future hold for PASA and for your affiliation with the shooting sports?
Well, we can expect to continue to make our operation, our people, and our facility available to the shooting sports organizations. We will continue to host the Masters each year in August, and we expect to continue hosting the USPSA Nationals for as long as the national organization wants to stay with us. We also have some other major matches planned in the future that we're going to host. We will be the host for the first USPSA Invitational World 3-gun match next May, and we're planning a major invitational National Ladies Championship to try to promote the participation of women in the sport, this being just a PASA match, and we're in the planning stages for that right now.
It's day 4, and the competition is really getting hot. So imagine this. It's a quiet night. You're enjoying a cup of coffee outside your patrol car when all of a sudden the silent alarm goes off in the building in front of you. That is what the course designers have set up for the Ernie Hill Speed Leather Warehouse stage. The shooter starts the stage leaning against the patrol car with a cup of coffee held to his lips with his strong hand. His weak hand is resting on his hip. The start signal is a flashing light on the side of the building ahead of him. At the start command, the shooter will draw his handgun and enter through the door. The first 2 targets must be engaged from the first shooting box. The next 2 targets and the first pepper popper will be engaged from the second shooting box. The pepper popper will cause the 4th target to appear. From the 3rd shooting box, the shooter will engage the next target and pepper popper. Once again, the pepper popper will cause the target to appear. The next target may be engaged from anywhere that it is visible between the 3rd shooting box and the 4th shooting box. At the 4th shooting box, the shooter will engage the next 2 targets and then proceed to the last shooting box where he will be able to shoot at the stop plate. By the way, the sound effects during our camera run were provided by the chief range officer at this match, Cheryl Hewlings, who was one of the many helpful range officers at this year's competition. Thank you very much, Cheryl, and thank you to all the range officials.
All right.
Now, here's our first shooter, Carrie Lathwell from Canada.
Stand by.
Ooh, Carrie didn't seat the magazine properly there, but she recovered well. Her time, 25.28, factors out to 3.51. Now, here's Robbie Latham.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Ouch, that's 3 shots on that stop plate, and that brings Rob's time to 18.91 seconds and a hit factor of 4.37. Now here's Kippy Boykin, Doug Boykin's wife. Kippy takes 2 shots at that stop plate, but you've got to remember, it's a 4-inch knockdown steel. Her time, 30.45, factors to 3.12. Next up is Jerry Barnhart at Ernie Hill's warehouse event. Jerry doesn't look too happy with that. His time, 18.95 seconds, factors out to 4.68. Our next shooter is Tammy Madigan. Tammy finishes with 25.27 seconds and a factor of 3.46. Next up is Shirley Hamilton from San Diego, California. Nice run for Shirley Hamilton. 1 shot at the stop plate. Her time, 26.82 seconds and a hit factor of 2.83. Here's Michael Voigt with Ernie Hill's Speed Leather Warehouse. Mike Voigt jumps into first place with a hit factor of 4.94 and wins the Ernie Hill Speed Leather Warehouse stage. Jerry Barnhart comes in second, Doug Boykin is third, Angelo Spagnoli fourth, and Ted Bonnet fifth. With the Super Squad heading off to the chronograph, let's look at how the standings are at this point. The top 4 places stay the same, the only change being Angelo Spagnoli has made his move into 5th place. Will Rob Latham be able to hold on to a slight lead over Jerry Barnhart, or will another of the top shooters jump out to the top? Stay tuned as we move into the last day. But first, here's Dave Stanford on how you can join the USPSA organization and help support the sport of practical shooting in the United States.
We're still growing. We're the fastest growing sport in the nation. We are adding new members every day, every month. It's becoming quite a popular thing. There's a lot of more people taking interest in shooting and in firearms that weren't before. Some you see much in the media and in the press to the negative of firearms, and it's got people thinking about them. The ones that have been raised with firearms, that are understanding that a firearm is a tool and can be used in competition or sport, and don't have preconceived notions of it, are coming back into the shooting field. And I think that's great for us, the shooting sports, and the more the people we get involved, maybe we can convince others that a firearm in itself is certainly not a bad instrument.
Well, the sport is growing, and it certainly is fun. Where do you see it taking off from here, and how can people become a member?
Well, it's pretty easy to become a member. It's $20 a year currently, and they can write to us in Cedarville-Woolley, Washington at P.O. Box 811, USPSA, Cedarville-Woolley, Washington 98284. And we'll be glad to communicate with them. If they want to know simply more about the organization, they can write us a letter and just drop us a line, tell us to send them the membership information. We'll send a little brochure out that tells them about the organization, about the clubs, about the Front Sight magazine that they'd published that gives them information on where to shoot and various advances in the sport.
How old is the USPSA organization, and how has it evolved over the years?
This organization was incorporated actually in 1985. We are part of IPSC shooting, which started in the United States as a formal competitive sport in 1976. The USPSA is the controlling body for all practical shooting, IPSC practical shooting in the United States. And as I said, we've been incorporated since '85 and the rise has been meteoric ever since.
As the competition and the shooters gotten a lot better?
Tremendously so. Used to be the competitions, what one person would do and would be a national class or national caliber 5 years ago is now routinely done by A-class shooters. We do have a classification on a national basis, so from master class down through A, B, C, and D. So you can actually compete with your peers once you are classified, but it takes a while to become classified nationally. Many local clubs also run a local classification until you achieve a national recognition.
Well, this is it. It's day 5. It's all come down to the last day. This stage is called Cornered, sponsored by Wilson's Gun Shop. It's a house-clearing stage with a few twists, such as twisting, appearing, and moving targets. And when I say move, they really move. The shooter starts off leaning against the wall. At the start command, the shooter will move to the first window and engage the first target and the first popper. The popper will activate the second target, which will appear and then disappear. The shooter will then move to box B and engage the 2 poppers, which will activate another target, which will appear and then disappear. While moving to the next shooting box, the shooter will fire at the target through the second window. At the second shooting box, the shooter will knock down the popper, which will activate a single target, which will appear and stay visible. From there, the shooter will move through the door, which will activate the moving targets, and there are also 2 banks of stationary targets. Now, our first shooter came all the way from Hawaii. He used to live in California. Here he is. It's Mike Breklisich. Mike pulls the trigger just about as fast as anybody I've ever seen, but he has a little trouble with his accuracy. His time of 22.81 factors to 4.03. Now let's see how J. Michael Plaxco does with Wilson's Cornered. Plaxco almost missed a set of targets in that stage. He finishes with an 18.97 second run and a hit factor of 5.33. Now here's the party animal himself, Chris Horry.
Stand by.
Chris took 11 shots through that last window. His time, 17.87 seconds, and factor, 5.60. Now, our next shooter is Rick Byfield. Rick Byfield demonstrates his modified Weaver stance as he finishes with 16.87 seconds and 6.26 as his hit factor. Here's Robbie Leatham preparing for this stage. I asked him how he plans to negotiate the course of fire?
Just shoot safe stage. At the end of the match like this, there's very little opportunity in this particular event for any sort of chances. There's no trick. Everybody's going to pretty much shoot it straight up. Like anything else, when you end up at the finish, what you're trying to do is not screw up. You know, if I shoot a good solid run and I get beat, okay, I can live with that. But if I screw up, that's where the problem's going to be. Everybody's going to shoot this the same because they're really, all the chances you can take, I don't think, are worth anything. You know, taking less shot on the mover, taking the load in a different position, I don't think it's going to pan out. I think everybody's going to shoot exactly the same, and it's going to be close. At the end of this thing, it's going to be 5 points, probably between the top three, unless someone takes a miss.
Stand by!
Rob Leatham shoots it straight up. His time, 16.23 seconds, factors out to 6.54.
Are you ready?
Now here's Jerry Barnhart at cornered. Jerry Barnhart opens the door into the lead with that last run. His score of 6.85 is a hit factor, bumps Rob Leatham into second place on that stage and closes the gap between him and Leatham in the overall standings. Now looking at the final results of the Wilson's Gun Shop Corners stage, Rick Byfield came in third place. Fourth place goes to Russ James, and Charlie Putman is in fifth. In the race for the overall championship, Jerry Barnhart has a very slight lead over Rob Leatham. Mark Mazzata is still in third place, while Doug Boykin and Angelo Spagnoli have swapped places. It all comes down to the most feared stage in this year's match, and that happens to be called Room with a View, sponsored by Smith & Wesson. It's been given a nickname by most of the shooters as the Stage from Hell. We asked the USPSA president and match director Dave Stanford to tell us about this computer-controlled stage. Dave?
The Stage from Hell was really a scenario type, which they call it the Stage from Hell. We called it Windows with a View. He's using the vernacular, you might say, that the shooters have come from. It's simply a time-fire stage. Targets appear and disappear in a precise set order on a computer program. And the first run, you're shooting from 2 windows and through a center doorway. And each session progressively gets faster. And so the last session is really a test of master class shooters, where any C or B class shooter would be able to get some good hits on the first 3 targets. Then as you test your ability, it's up to you just how fast, how hard you want to go, because there's no penalty for misses on that system. It's only how many hits you can get in the set amount of time. There is approximately 15 seconds from target exposure time for you to complete 18 rounds through 3 various positions.
Our first shooter at this very unusual stage is Doug Koenig. Here he is at Room with a View. That's a good score by Doug Koenig. He scores 76 points overall out of a possible 90, and it's one of the highest scores we've seen so far. Next up is Brian Enos. Brian takes 4 shots at that last target, and it probably helped him, as he finishes with 73 points out of the possible 90. Now here's Eric Stafford at Room with a View. Eric Stafford finishes with an excellent score, 79 points, one of the highest so far today. Now, our next shooter is going to be Angelo Spagnoli. Spagnoli has a chance to win this tournament if he does well in this event. Spagnoli takes 3 shots at that last target, but he finishes with a disappointing 57 points, which just about takes him out of contention for the overall championship. But here's our current leader, Jerry Barnhart. Let's see how he does on the stage from hell. Jerry Barnhart hesitated on a set of targets there, and he didn't get a shot off at the next bank of targets. Here is the slow motion. Hesitates there, and now he misses because the targets are just not there. He drops down to 68 points on this stage, and that's going to give him trouble because here's Rob Leatham, who's right on his tail in this national championship. Rob Leatham stands tall, shoots confident, and does what he has to do. His score of 73 points is 5 more points than Jerry Barnhart's, and that gives him the edge to win the 1989 USPSA National Champion. Rob Leatham has done it again. Here's an interview with this year's winner. Robbie did it again. It was tight at the end there.
Oh, it was real tight.
And you came back.
Well, you know what really happened, if you look at it, is Jerry and I were shooting like that all the way through the match, and most of the time we were chasing Angelo up till the last day, and we kind of took turns falling down and then tripping over each other. He'd shoot a good solid stage and then make an error, and I'd shoot a good one and then make an error, and it worked down to coming to the last stage. I figured around 4 to 5 points was a separation, and when I beat him on the last stage by 5 points, then I couldn't call it because there are other factors coming into play in this kind of scoring system. You know, someone changes a factor on one of the other stages, it can drastically change what you thought was already a gospel, and that's, you know, that did come into play on a very small level, and it was nip and tuck all the way. You know, this is by far the closest match. I'm sure that the percentage is 99 point something on second position.
What was that room with a view like for you? Was it difficult? Was it interesting? Was it?
Well, what it was you didn't know. Without actually doing it sometime, you know, you didn't know. So you had to shoot it kind of safe. You couldn't really play with any of the shots. You know, if you had time to really look it over and try it a couple times, you could figure out which shots you had were slow, which ones were fast. As it was, and coming down to the end and being relatively nervous, I decided I better kind of push everything, and I still didn't get to one shot on a target that I fired. And it was gone. And Jerry had the same thing. You know, that same target he didn't get to. So we both made the same mistake. But it makes it a horse race, doesn't it?
And a horse race it was, as this year's competition was one of the closest I've ever seen. Rob Leatham, of course, was first. Jerry Barnhart in second place. Angelo Spagnoli third. Doug Koenig in fourth. Mark Mazzato was in fifth. J. Michael Plaxco finished up sixth. Greg Meller, seventh. Frank Garcia, eighth. In ninth place, Billy Abbott. And rounding out the top 10, Ron Avery. Now, looking at the top 5 scores for the Room with a View stage, Eric Stafford finished with 79 points in first place. Todd Jarrett was in second. Mike Breklicich in third. Doug Koenig in fourth. And Keith Hedman in fifth place. Now, for the Women's Championship, Debbie James retains her title and, more importantly, finishes 70th out of all competitors. Carrie Lathold is in second. B.J. Ratcliffe, Kippy Boykin, and Shirley Hamilton top out the top 5. Now, here's an interview with our winner, Debbie James.
I feel really happy about 70th overall. That was one of my goals, was really actually to try to place top 50, because I don't think there's been another woman to do that, and that's my goals. Not to say that I don't want to win high lady, but I'm here as an athlete. It's a shooting sport, and I just look at the best shooters, and that's my real goal. It's hopefully someday I will maybe place 50 or 25 or better, and that is my goal. My next goal is maybe to make master class.
On the final day of competition, the weather has taken a turn for the worse. Now, it looks nice, but in all reality, it's about 40 to 45 degrees, and it's a big change from the week preceding this event. It's Saturday, and the top 16 men and the top 8 ladies are competing in one of the most popular and fun events of the whole championship. It's the Colt Speed Shoot-Off. Now, this event puts man against man, or in this case, woman against woman, to knock down 6 steel poppers. a mandatory reload is required in the stage. Our first event features the women's champion Debbie James versus the world speed shooting champion Shirley Hamilton. Debbie James wins that first run. Her time, 6.65 seconds to Shirley Hamilton's 6.82. Now, this is the best 3 out of 5. Here's run 2. Debbie James takes it. Her time, 5.83 seconds. That's Niall Leatham. Rob Latham's dad doing what he does best. Take photos. Here's run 3.
Oh, well, 5.36 seconds for Debbie James, who is the 1989 USPSA IPSC Ladies National Shoot-Off Champion, as well as winning a couple of matches today.
As the Chief Range Officer Chris Edwards said, Debbie James is our winner, and without a doubt, the best female pistol shooter to ever live up until this time. Now, here's the start of our men's shoot-off. It's Doug Koenig on this side versus Frank Garcia on the far left. Frank Garcia put it all together. He took that run with a 4.17 seconds. Koenig had 5.60. Now here's run number 2.
Good thing he saw that one.
Frank makes it 2-0 with his time, 5.87.
I believe Mr. Frank Garcia is the 1989 Colt Farms Shoot-Off Champion. Come get the money Frank can run. We want to thank everybody for the good championship, and you are the best shooters in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you know, but we only let Chris Edwards out of the padded room once a year. Right. For the Nationals, and then we wrap him back in the net.
As they take Chris Edwards away, I'd like to say thank you for watching the 1989 USPSA Nationals from the Pike Adams Sportsman Alliance here in Barry, Illinois. I'd like to congratulate the shoot-off winners, Debbie James and Frank Garcia, and the regular winners of our competition, Debbie James and Rob Leatham, as the USPSA National Champions. I'd also like to thank the PASA volunteers and all the range officials who helped us make this tape possible. I'm Lenny McGill, along with Kenya Blower. Until next time, safe shooting. Welcome to Rock and Roll Number 1, fully automatic machine gun fun. In this program, we'll look at automatic weapons from around the world, including the Beretta P12S from Italy, the Colt M16 from the United States, from Israel, the Uzi 9mm, the Russian AK-47, the Ingram MAC-10. It's all here, plus lots more, so sit back and get ready to rock and roll.
Shooter, stand by. Ready.
What's it like to be known as the fastest, most accurate pistol shooter alive? Only one man knows for sure. Rob Leatham of Mesa, Arizona. Today, he's putting that reputation on the line because as this exciting 4-stage pistol competition unfolds, he'll be challenged by more than 200 of the best pistol shooters in the world, all competing for $150,000 in cash and prizes as the 1985 National Rifle Association's Bianchi Cup gets underway.
We have 5 events. It's all on steel targets. Each course is different from the next. Every shooter shoots a total of 5 courses of fire, or 5 stages, and they throw out their worst event. Again, we're trying to promote speed. We want to get that, let it all hang out type of an atmosphere. And this way, if you have a disaster run, a gun malfunction, or the shooter just simply doesn't do well one time, that's out of his head and he can keep on pushing for a better score.
That's Mike Fitchman, who along with Mike Dalton developed the course of fire you're about to see. Described in 2 words, it's speed and steel. Because today, more than 250 of the world's fastest and most accurate pistol shooters compete against the clock and themselves as the 1984 Steel Challenge World Speed Shooting Championship gets underway. Soldier of Fortune magazine presents the 1984 Soldier of Fortune Convention. In this videotape, we'll take you rappelling down the side of a 14-story building, racing through the desert on the Warrior fast attack vehicle. And here's something new and different this year, pugil stick competitions. Plus, you'll see all phases of the Soldier of Fortune 3-gun combat match with pistol, rifle, and shotgun. The latest weapons demonstrated by the manufacturers themselves. New products at the Military Arms and Collectors Show. Speakers including Soldier of Fortune magazine publisher Robert K. Brown, Major General J.K. Singlab, and Afghan freedom fighter Hassan Galandi. And of course, more of what's made the Soldier of Fortune convention what it is today. The sport of combat shooting is not new. While the Southwest Pistol League is generally credited with starting the competition aspect of combat shooting, the roots stretch back to the training of Union soldiers during the Civil War. The military has been utilizing combat methods since the introduction of the 1855 rifle musket, the first military rifle with precision sights. Military training consisted of both rifle and handgun practice. And although law enforcement agencies such as the FBI have been using the shotgun in training and on duty, combat shotgun competitions have only been introduced in the last decade. The popularity of such events, such as the Steel Challenge, which has its own separate shotgun match, has brought the shotgun into mainstream combat shooting. One of the consistent top contenders in the shooting sports is John Shaw. Shaw has won more major tournaments and finished consistently higher than any other combat shooter in the world. His victories include the 1980 and 1981 IPSC National Championships, gold medals in the International IPSC Championships, and 5 consecutive Soldier of Fortune Shotgun Championships. His speed and accuracy have earned him the title of the fastest shotgun in the world. When not competing and not practicing, He also teaches combat shooting to law enforcement personnel, military personnel, and civilians at his own Mid-South Institute of Self-Defense Shooting, MISS, which he founded in 1982. He has also written 2 books on shooting, Shoot to Win and You Can't Miss. John Shaw recently conducted a shotgun seminar at the 1986 Steel Challenge. Here are the highlights of that seminar. The interest in practical shooting has grown dramatically over the past several years. Names such as Rob Leatham, Brian Enos, John Shaw, and many more have become known worldwide in the households of many shooters. Hello, I'm Lenny McGill. Over the past several years, I've been producing videotapes for the shooting industry. In particular, the firearms-related pistol competitions known as the Steel Challenge and the Bianchi Cup. Now, at these tournaments, I've had the opportunity to interview some of the best pistol shooters in the world. We talked about their techniques, their stance, their trigger pull, their practice methods, even the type of guns they use. This tape is a compilation of those interviews. It's called Pistol Masters. So whether you're a beginning shooter or an accomplished shooter and been shooting for a while, I'm sure that you're going to be able to learn something from the best pistol shooters in the world. So, without any further delay, let's get started in what I like to call Pistol Masters.